Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progress DataDirect webinar, Ask Me Anything, Data Access for BI and Analytics. So let's start by quickly introducing today's panelists. My name is Todd Wright. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for Progress DataDirect, and I'll be today's moderator for the webcast. I am joined by our speakers, Abhijit Kulkarni and Kylie Miller. Abhijit is a product manager with over 5 years of experience in product management of data connectivity solutions and a total of 15 plus years experience of data connectivity product development at Progress DataDirect. Kylie Miller is a principal systems engineer for Progress DataDirect. She has been with Progress for over 20 years. She is focused on delivering high performance data access and integration to the critical data needed for exceptional business success. I'll turn it over to Abhijit to start the presentation. And Abhijit, it is all yours.
Thanks, Todd, for that introduction. So let's move on. So for today's, I will go with a quick presentation. And for that presentation, I want to touch upon a few topics like we are talking about BI analytics, right? So what BI analytics tools we are talking about, what are those, what's the scenario looks there, right? So we will talk about that. What are the challenges while working with BI and analytics tools and this entire data connectivity with BI analytics tool domain? Where is the data, right? What are all locations where that data can be present, and how we as a Progress DataDirect can help in this entire picture, right? So let's begin. So suppose there is some data which is on premise, right? Like your SQL Server, Oracle, some DB2 legacy data, right? All those are in your on-premise data sources, whereas some of the data which is in your new age cloud computing, like your Salesforce, Eloqua, Marketo, and all that, right? So some of that data lives in premise, some of that data lives in cloud. Now you want to use that data to somehow build a report, right? Which you can view and use the reporting data to make some business critical decisions, take some actions, and all that, right? So the BI analytics is completely journey from this data, which is stored in cloud and on-premise, to this report. One piece of that puzzle we already know is BI analytics tool, right? Which will help us generate this report. Now the main critical part comes into picture, like how this data will get into your BI tool to generate the report that you want, right? Which is really actionable and which is really moves the needle on your business. So this data connectivity piece could be really challenging, and that's where Progress DataDirect comes in to help you. So let's focus more about these BI analytics tool, right? So what BI analytics tool you are using currently or you are planning to use? Can you provide us those names in chat window? I will give a few seconds for that, and then we can continue with the presentation. So if you are like most, right, these would be your choices. This is the Magic Quadrant by Gartner, released in February 2021. So if you look at Microsoft is leading this way with their Excel and Power BI tools, closely followed by Tableau. But when I see into this Magic Quadrant, I see like it's the space is really crowded with a lot of good tools, and Progress DataDirect works with most of these tools with the standard connectivity. So that's a good news for us. So we have done a similar survey with our customer base in 2020. And if you look at this chart as well, you see Excel Power BI is leading that way, just like the Gartner's Magic Quadrant, followed by Tableau. And there are a lot of other tools in those crowded spaces we support and also popular with our customer base. So now we know about the tools, and we see like Progress DataDirect has a really wide connectivity spectrum for these BI analytics tools, right? But what are the most common challenges working with these projects? So this is the part which we are going to focus on to understand what are those real challenges are. So when we ask the same question to our customer base, right, we get some of very common answers. The first one is lack of inbuilt connectivity. Right, this BI analytics tool comes with some of the inbuilt connectors to few popular data sources, But like with current data environment that most of the enterprises and companies have, like the data is really widespread and it's across multiple data sources. So having the native or inbuilt connectivity in your BI tool to all the data that you want to pull is like a very difficult scenario nowadays. So lack of inbuilt connectivity is one of the major challenge that our customer face to get data into BI analytics tool. The second problem is every data source supports its own authentication methods and identity services, right? So having a uniform identity across multiple data sources is a really challenge. Many customers or enterprises want their corporate identity to be used for authentication for that access to all these data sources, but that's not currently possible with widespread of data sources and their own ways of authenticating users. The third and another important point is how your data gets exposed. Currently, with inbuilt connectors or standard connectors, the entire data of your data source get exposed to be an analytics tool. And if your data source is not role aware, right, or it do not have like a role based or column based access validation for that authentication, right, like all the data is exposed to all the users, which certainly not a scenario that most of the enterprises want. The next one is installing and managing like a multiple required softwares, right? If you are connecting to 10 different data sources, that probably means installing 10 different connectivity solutions and managing them and maintaining them across your multiple deployments. That could be really painful. Another one, especially true with the API-based data sources like Salesforce or Marketo or like Stripe, right? Or so any of these API data sources, because those are cloud hosted and exposed through APIs, they are really dynamic in nature. Their APIs and schema can change with their very frequent releases. And if your applications or a BI tool are directly consuming those APIs, it could be really fatal for your production deployments if there is a API or schema change that you are really not expecting. The next one is when your cloud, the BI tool is hosted on cloud, making connecting those BI tools on cloud to your on-premise data could be really challenging. Usually that means creating holes in your firewall to expose your on-premise data source ports to BI tool, or that could also mean using some VPN solution which has its own challenges. And the last one, but definitely not the least, is lack of auditing, right? It's really very hard in that scenario to get understanding of who's accessing what data, when they accessed, how long they are accessing, right? All those typical auditing questions, it's really hard to get answered in typical BI analytics tool scenario. So these are a few of the top challenges that we are hearing from our customers. So let's look into how Progress Data Direct can help in solving those challenges. So the first one is lack of inbuilt connectivity. Using the standard-based connectors, Progress Data Direct can extend the connectivity options of your favorite BI and analytics tool by multifold. Currently, we have 70 plus connectors available. Also, our autonomous REST connector, which can connect to any of the REST-based data sources, right? The options are limitless. So the integration of DataDirect products with your favorite BI tool can actually help you widespread your connectivity options. So the lack of inbuilt connectivity doesn't remain a problem. Our products can help you sort of implement the role-based and access-based security. For example, hybrid data pipeline with his OData schema map can help you select which objects, tables, and columns that you want to expose through a particular data source, like for a set of users, and you can create another model for another set of users. That way you can choose which data is exposed to what users, and that way you can solve these exposing sensitive private information problem with your BI project. Again, with our hybrid data pipeline project, you can get widespread like multiple data source connectivity using a single ODBC or JDBC connector, right? That way you do not have to install and manage multiple connectivity solutions to get to all the data sources that you want to pull into your report, right? Just having a single connector to our product would help you solve that problem. Also, our hybrid data pipeline product helps you define a fixed model exposed to your BI analytic tool. That way, any change in the API or schema, right, you can stay protected. You can build it out, test those schema changes and API changes on your development instance. And then once you are sure about its working, then you can move it to the production. So that way, with our products, you can do dev, test, and prod transitions of your models that help you safeguard your BI and analytics tool from these dynamic changes of APIs and schema. Again, while accessing the on-premise data from cloud BI tools, hybrid data pipeline has an innovative technology which helps you access the on-premise data without creating any holes in the firewall, as well as not using any less secure or questionable VPN solutions, right? So that's where also we can help you. Hybrid data pipeline has its own auditing, so you will know who's accessing, what it's getting accessed, and with, again, the pluggable authentication mechanism of our hybrid data pipeline product can help you implement your corporate identity across all the data sources that you are connecting through that product. So hybrid data pipeline is a data access platform which can help you connect to multiple data sources using a single connector on your BI tool side. So we are able to solve these problems, but where that data could reside. So if you look at where is your data, it could be anywhere, and we are well prepared for that. Like I said, we have 75 plus pre-built connectors in our kitty to help you get your data into your favorite BI tool. So you don't have to worry about what's inbuilt in which BI tool, right? Based on your technical and business reasons, you can choose the right BI tool for that use case, and then you can trust on DataDirect to get your data into that BI tool, right? And if you are not able to see your connector in that 75 plus data sources that we have, don't worry, right? So in last 90 days alone, we have added 20 plus GA connectors, right? And we have no plans to slow down. So you can definitely look forward to get your favorite connector into our kitty pretty soon. And again, like if that also doesn't happen, the hybrid data pipeline can easily plug in any other existing standard-based JDBC connector into its kitty. So you are covered that way as well. So that's about how Progress Data Direct can help you solve your BI analytics problems. And now over to Kylie to give us a quick demo. Kylie?
Thank you, Abhijit. Today I will be showing two demos. The first showing ODBC connectivity using our autonomous REST connector along with Power BI and connecting to a REST endpoint. And I will also show our hybrid data pipeline product to achieve OData connectivity to that same REST endpoint. When you install our autonomous REST connector for ODBC and you go to the Start Program window, it will create and open our user interface in order to create a configuration file. Our autonomous REST connector uses a REST configuration file in order to access that backend API. And that file is just a JSON document, and it determines how the data can be formed into a relational model so it can be used with your traditional BI tools using ODBC or JDBC connectivity. The product will sample the response from any REST API that we can consume and then turns that into a relational data model. And as I said, we provide this user interface here to help you build that configuration file, or you can bring in a recipe that we have pre-built, kind of a template that we've pre-built for you to various sources, and some of those sources that Abhijit mentioned, such as AHA, Jira, Twitter, some of the beta sources that we support, GitHub, and HubSpot, and coming soon, such as PayPal. For today's presentation or demo, I'll show the Open Brewery API. And if you click this, it will automatically bring in that recipe that we have pre-built for you. And Open Brewery is a public API that anybody can access. This is their website, Open Brewery Database. Their projects are available on GitHub. And if you go to List Breweries here on the left, you'll see this is the base URL that we can use with the driver in order to access that REST endpoint. So if I go back to the user interface here, the host name or the base URL has already been brought in for me, showing that Open Brewery URL. And the only other thing I need to do here for authentication, we do support multiple authentication methods with Autonomous REST Connector, such as OAuth, VeriToken. We also support custom authentication, but for this brewery API, it does not require authentication, so I will just choose none here. Next, when you go to configure endpoints, when you are connecting to your own API, you would put in the endpoint here along with the table name, and at that point you can hit send and it will sample that REST endpoint and bring back the endpoint here on the left-hand side. Because we are using that template, it brought it in for us automatically, so it found the brewery's endpoint. And if I expand that, and it's already been formed into that relational model of rows and columns, so it's showing the column names that are available to us within that endpoint. And if I click on breweries, it will automatically validate that data in real time within this UI as well and show you that the SQL view here and also that JSON view if needed. And with this, you can also modify that JSON file if there's anything that is not quite right. For example, if I go to this, you can go to modify attribute. This is set to primary key. I'm going to uncheck that. I will make this one the primary key instead and change this to change the data type. So it's updating that model for me automatically. Everything is how I want it to be now. You can even create or add your own query parameters for that backend API if needed, include pagination. All this has already been done for me because of that the template that I uploaded. So once I have everything here, it creates the connection string, whether you're using a DSN-less connection string. If I were using JDBC, it would have the JDBC URL here, or you can go ahead and download that REST configuration file and use that when creating your ODBC connection. So I will open that here, and it's created that Open Brewery API REST file or JSON file for me. So now if I go to the ODBC administrator and create a data source to the Autonomous REST connector, and it's opening the configuration manager now to create that data source. And you have to give it a data source name. And the only other thing here that you need to add is the location of the REST configuration file that was created. So I'm going to copy that location, put it in here, and add that REST file name. And since this API does not have authentication, I will leave that to none. And that is all I need to do. And save that. Now it's created that data source name for me. If I go back to the ODBC administrator, it's created that Ado Breweries data source for me. So now you can go to your favorite BI tool of choice. I will use Power BI and go to get that data. And you can select Other and ODBC and Connect. And I will choose that Ado Breweries data source that I created in the ODBC administrator. And since this data source does not have authentication, I will choose Default or Custom. And it will read that data source and bring back the data for me. There it is loading, and I will load it in here. So this is going to bring back several thousand rows from that brewery's API. And once it completes loading, it will add the information here on the right-hand side. And there I have access to my brewery's data. Let me go ahead and add a couple of those in here. I'm going to add it as a map. Let me add the name of the brewery, the city it's located in, the state, and the type of brewery. And let me change this and change the name just so it makes a little more sense in here. You can rename the field names. And okay, and then I'll change this. And now it will bring back the visual for the breweries API. You'll see this is for worldwide. There's several breweries here in London, several in Alaska. I'll scroll in here a little bit closer to the US. And for the bubbles, it gives me the information that's available. Obviously, this is only the information that is available in that API, but it gives you the type of brewery it is. Here's Springfield, Missouri, White River Brewing. And this is your visual for that brewery API. With Power BI, it gives you the ability of bringing in the data two different ways. You can import the data, which is what we just did, and it will load that data into memory, and the user can only refresh that data once a day. They also give you the ability of using direct query. It gives you the results that are needed in real time, and you can configure refreshes for the data to refresh every 15 minutes, every hour, every couple of hours, but it's a little bit more flexibility of how current that data is. In order to use direct query, they require you to use what's called a custom connector. There are several of our ODBC drivers that we provide the custom connector for. Autonomous REST Connector is one of them. We do support custom connector with our Hive and Greenplum and other drivers as well. But if you navigate, if you go to the installation of the ODBC driver, and we provide the Power BI custom connector for you in there. You just need to incorporate that into your Power BI application, which we have documentation on how to do that. So if you use the custom connector to use direct query, I'm going to create another report here. And when I select the product, instead of using ODBC, I will use the AutoRest connector, the custom connector. And I will put in the same data source name and choose direct query instead of import. Now it's bringing back the data the same way it did before. Select breweries and load, and I will do everything the same as last time. All right, and I'll just select a couple of these here again. And whoops. So now it'll bring back that data. And there the data has been returned. And then I can save this report. And once that is saved, I can then publish this report to my Power BI in the cloud. And Power BI in the cloud is where you can issue those that refresh intervals. So I'll save it in my workspace in the cloud. And once that's done, I can open it within Power BI, and the same report will open here for anyone. You can send a link for anyone to access that report. And there the report has been brought in here into Power BI Cloud. And then you can go to that data set and this is where you can configure the refresh, whether you have 1 hour, every 15 minutes, daily, weekly. But that is Power BI and using the Autonomous REST Connector. The other demo I would like to show real quick is using our hybrid data pipeline with OData connectivity. As Avadhoot mentioned, Hybrid Data Pipeline can give you the ability to secure your data sources behind your corporate authentication, can give you the ability to access on-prem data sources behind a firewall, and also gives you the ability to decide which tables and columns you want to expose to your end users. You can also share the data source to on-prem sources or cloud-based sources, or even a REST API by providing a single ODBC or JDBC driver. You don't even have to share a driver, the ODBC or JDBC driver, and you can provide an OData endpoint to any of those sources. So I'm quickly going to show you how to achieve OData connectivity to that same REST API that we used in the last demo. So if I click on New Data Sources here, these are the sources that we support out of the box today with Hybrid Data Pipeline. And all of these sources you can connect to using a single ODBC driver or JDBC driver or OData endpoint. We also support the ability of bringing your own JDBC driver for use within Hybrid Data Pipeline, or you can also use our, we've recently incorporated our Autonomous REST connector for use within Hybrid Data Pipeline as well. So I will click on that and give it a name. And I'm going to use that same endpoint that we used in the last sample right here and import that, and it automatically brought that data in. If I click on Generate Configuration, this is that same JSON REST file that was generated before. So you can see the data types and column names. You can even edit this file if there's anything in here that you want to change or update. And now if I click on the OData tab, I can configure my schema map to connect to that REST endpoint. So I will select Auto REST, and I want to remove the configuration because we just want the breweries information. So here's all the column names that we have access to. You can remove the column names if you don't want some of these for your end users to have access to, and save that mapping. And once that is done, you can save the data source, and it's automatically, the mapping was already created for me for that OData map. So I can click on that. This is my URI that I can use with any application that supports OData. I'll quickly show you, you may have noticed in one of Avadhoot's slides that Excel is still even one of the number BI tools of choice that customers are using. So I'm going to use Excel because you can use our ODBC driver or OData with Excel. If I go to Data and Get Data from other sources and select OData, you can just put in that OData URL, hit OK, and it will bring back that list of brewery right there. Load that data in. And there you go. And everything's brought back into Excel. And that's all for my demo today. So I will send it back over to Todd.
Thanks, Kylie. I appreciate it. And thank you as well, Avadhoot. Looks like we have quite a bit of time for questions, and that's a good thing because we have a lot of questions for both of you. If you don't mind, Kylie and Avadhoot, if we could have you go on camera for this portion while we get some of these questions answered, it'd be greatly appreciated. Hello. All right, guys. Like I said, we have several questions, so we'll jump right into this. First question is, how technical do my people need to be to use your offering? Is there going to be a bunch of training that's involved? Not sure which one. Kylie, you want to take that one since you're out in the field a lot? Or?
Sure, I can take that one.
Okay. Sure.
For users of the BI tools, if you're familiar with the BI tool, of course, and you're familiar with using ODBC in general, then no additional knowledge is needed. You're just using a different ODBC driver. When it comes to building that recipe or building that template to use within Autonomous REST Connector, you do have to be a little bit more technical. You'll have to know that backend API just a bit in order to create that recipe. So at that point, you will have to have a little bit more technical background on that. But when it comes back to the API, to the application, then you're just using an ODBC driver.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We have another question. Do you connect to Sage Accounting? Avadhoot, I'll throw that one to you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I can take that. So currently we do not have out-of-the-box connector for Sage Accounting, but I believe they have REST APIs, so it would be very we should try the autonomous REST connector and see if that works with Sage Accounting REST APIs. I'm pretty hopeful that it should work out of the box when, just like the demo Kelly provided, if you can point to Sage Accounting URL and sample it, that might just work out.
Okay.
But it's good to understand that there is an interest for Sage Accounting, and we can look at adding that to our roadmap and see how much interest there is for Sage Accounting. So thanks for that input.
Yep. Thank you.
And also, I believe Sage might be on the coming soon list, potentially. And I know that we've had requests in years past for Sage. I've heard it several times over the years. So it's something that's been asked for in the past.
Okay, it's great to hear that question as well. So another one, we use multiple BI tools at our company. Does DataDirect licensing allow for such a thing?
We can do custom licensing for multiple BI tools. I know that we have also worked with customers with several large server farms using different BI tools. So we can work closely with you on a licensing model that will work for several BI tools that you have in-house.
Okay, great. Like I said, we have a lot of questions, so I'll keep them going. The next one, can I have multiple tables in one data source? And I'll let whoever wants to answer this one first can go ahead.
Kelly, you want to take that?
Sure.
Don't jump at it.
Yes, you can have several tables. Trying to think with when I just showed connecting with OData, you can select the tables and even narrow it down to the columns that you want to expose within that REST endpoint or to that OData endpoint. So you can be very granular of what you want your end users to have access to.
Right. So just add a little bit more flavor to that, like on the OData side or ODBC, JDBC side, you are technically limitless on accessing how many objects you can access simultaneously, right? Whatever the user has permission to, they should be able to access those, right? The UI that we were seeing in Power BI or any other BI tool, usually they allow you to pull more than one objects, right? So that you can even look at their relative information and like more pivot type of chart building, right? You can do all those stuff with those BI analytics tools. So yes, both on driver side as well as tool side, you should be able to work with multiple objects from the same data source. Yes.
All right. Thank you for both of you on that one. Here's a question that's really about the sign of the times here. We deal with a lot of regulated data. Does DataDirect provide access permission based on who is allowed to access which data?
I can take that question. So we have like multiple products to solve that problem, right? Like Kylie was showing, you can build OData models for specific roles and expose it that way. If that is like too verbose still for your use case, you can look at our SDK solution, which will work like a wrapper over your data source and gives you much more granularity to decide which sort of rows, columns, tables, objects, right, are exposed to which role from which region, because that connectivity layer is sort of owned by you, and you will sort of help, you will put your code into that. You get a lot of ability to customize and have more control on who can connect to what and who will have access to what. So we have different products which can solve this problem at different levels. So it's a good conversation to have with us for your specific needs and see which solution will work best for you.
Okay, great. Here's another question we have here. With potentially millions of records, is it not very performant to use direct query on objects with high cardinality?
With direct query, attention lines records. I'm not sure. In regards to direct query, I'm not sure how they how it works when bringing in potentially millions of records. I know with, especially for the refresh, if you're setting up that refresh to happen, every 15 minutes and you have millions of records, I don't know how well that would work. So I'm not as familiar with the direct query side to know if that the refresh could happen that quickly with the millions of records being returned. I'll have to look into that one a little bit for you.
Not a problem at all. The great thing about having the information on these webinars is we can get back to everyone on this call today. If we can't answer the question on the webcast, we'll definitely get back with you with the answer that you seek. All right, on to the next one. Is there a way to force read-only access with the autonomous REST connector with my BI application?
And that's actually something I did not mention in my demo. Autonomous REST connector currently is read-only. We do not support writes with the product. That could be something that's coming in the future, but for autonomous REST connector today, we only support read-only. So that'll work perfect with the BI tools. And for the hybrid data pipeline product, OData is, you can specify read-only access for that product as well.
Okay. Thank you again. Next question. Are OData filters supported for the OData queries?
Yeah, so you mean passing the filters in OData to filter the result set? Yes, those are supported.
Okay, great. Let's see, on to the next question. Like I said, guys, we have a lot of them here, so bear with me. What is your best solution for connecting to QAD 2019 ERP database with Power BI?
We have QAD 2019 ERP database. Our OpenEdge ODBC driver, I believe, I don't know what version of OpenEdge that is on. We might have to double check on that. But our OpenEdge ODBC driver will connect with Power BI, of course, today. Not with direct query. I don't believe we have a custom connector for the OpenEdge ODBC driver, but you can connect with Power BI for import today.
Okay. Yeah, and if you want your business logic to be sort of play a role in how you are connecting to data, right? Like if you have any logic in your ABL which decides who have access, or if you want to pre-process that data before it gets exposed to BI tool, you can always go through PASOE, PSOE, and then use autonomous REST connector to connect to those REST APIs. That way, your ABL logic also gets into picture, and not entire data as is get exposed to Power BI, but most like your process data get exposed to Power BI. So there are also like multiple options on how you want to expose that data. But yeah, both are great options and should work smoothly with Power BI.
Okay, wonderful. And Kylie, I think this might be a question for you in regard to the webcast that you did, or I'm sorry, the demo that you did. You showed your auto REST connector using predefined recipes like the brewery file. Mm-hmm. How hard would it be to point your REST connector at one of my internal applications that has a REST API?
Sure. You may have recalled in the demo when I brought up the configuration, the UI to load in your own recipe. If you don't have a recipe, you can build one. Within the configuration manager, you would just point to your REST endpoint, and then it will sample that REST endpoint and bring back the endpoint that it finds. And at that point, you can go through and make any modifications to that endpoint that's needed, or to the configuration file that's needed, such as data types or pagination, anything that you need to modify in order to for the data to be viewed as you're expecting. And you can also sample that data. It can validate that data for you in real time within that configuration tool to help you.
Okay. Anything to add to that, or should we move on to the next question?
No, it was a great answer, Kelly. So we can move on.
Excellent. All right. I don't know much about OData. Does that require me to install a client library with the BI tools?
I can answer that. So OData is more like, you can say, a standardized REST. Just like to execute SQL queries, we have ODBC and JDBC as a standard, right? If you think about REST API with a specific standards, that's OData for you. So OData is just like an API that you call. It doesn't need any standard client to connect to that OData, right? So no, so there is no client required to access to OData. You can even access it through simple browser.
Okay, Kylie, anything to add on that, or we'll move on to the next? All right, great. All right, this is a good question, especially considering the amount of business that we do with Salesforce. Do you have a demo for Salesforce? I know we did a webcast a few months ago. Is there anything as far as like a deep dive demo that we have for Salesforce that you use, Kylie, out in the field, or Avihu within your engagements?
Yeah, rather, I believe like a year back, I did a webinar on Salesforce, and the demo, I believe, was like using Salesforce data in Power BI through ODBC driver. So that would be a good one. I need to cross-check like what exact demo was that. But we should have some tutorial or demo surely for Salesforce in our blogs, and we should be able to provide that link to link here. Yeah.
And I know we have a demo on Salesforce Connect using hybrid data pipeline with OData for use of Salesforce Connect as well.
Yep, a lot of resources on Salesforce.
Right. So yeah, that's like both the use cases. Like when I was talking about Salesforce, I was talking about pulling Salesforce data into Power BI, right? Where what Kelly mentioned, Salesforce Connect is more like pulling your data present in other data sources into Salesforce and use Salesforce analytics capabilities to combine Salesforce and external data together and view reports on that. So we have options to work both ways with Salesforce.
Okay, great, thanks. And Abhihut, this will be a question for you. In one of your earlier slides, you showed the Magic Quadrant for BI tools. And as we all know, it's a very, very crowded space amongst the 4 quadrants. So the question is, will your REST connector work with other BI tools that you showed on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, not just Power BI?
Yes. So the autonomous REST connector is also a standard-based connector like ODBC and JDBC. So it works with all the BI analytics tools that we support and who support standard ODBC and JDBC connectivity. Our autonomous REST connector will work with all those tools.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see here. We have on-premise non-REST endpoints, which we get data from using HTTP post requests. How can DataDirect tools help me expose these endpoints to Power BI? And as mentioned before, if we don't have an answer, we can always get back to them.
Can you go through that question again? Like it wasn't super clear to me.
Unfortunately, I just deleted it. In regard to endpoints for Kylie, did you?
Yeah, no, I think you said non-REST endpoint.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep.
Today, I think they're talking about with the autonomous REST connector, we only support REST endpoints with a JSON response. So if you're looking to connect to a non-REST endpoint, autonomous REST connector is not something that would work today. Trying to think of another. Right now, the autonomous REST connector would not work with the non-REST endpoint.
Yeah, but you can always use, again, our custom SDK called Open Access to connect to that data sources, though you have to build a small IP layer which tells us how to correct and interpret that data. So you have a solution there, but it would be as click and go a solution like Autonomous Risk Connector is. Yes.
Okay. And I apologize, guys, for pushing the wrong button and deleting the question before it could be asked again. All right, we have another question. Please describe the benefits these tools help with Power BI data access to OpenEdge database, contrasting with ODBC and ability to get data via app server calls to use business logic. I kept this question if you want me to answer it or ask it again.
Yeah, please go over it again.
Absolutely. Please describe the benefits these tools help with Power BI data access to OpenEdge, OpenEdge database, contrasting with ODBC and the ability to get data via app server calls to use business logic.
So I'm still not understanding what we are comparing here. Like both, like the ODBC exposes data, and that's one way we are trying to get data into Power BI. The other way of exposing it through business logic, that is APL, right? You can expose that as a REST service using PASOE, and then use Autonomous REST Connector again to bridge that gap between Power BI and the REST endpoints exposed by PASOE, and again, if you have multiple connectors or any of the other challenges that I was showing during presentation, you can use hybrid data pipeline to make those transitions through. So all these tools are actually helping you solve different business challenges that you have. I don't think they are like, if I'm interpreting the question like if which tool is better than other, probably it's based on individual use cases and what problems you're trying to solve. So I'm not sure if I answered that question correctly, but that's my 2 cents there.
Okay. Kylie, I don't know if you had anything to add, but like I said before, we can always get to every individual question with each individual on the webcast today if we didn't get the answer that they needed. All right, I want my users to have read-only access. Can I enforce that with your data middleware?
I think a similar question came up earlier in that we do have some read-only access. Again, the Autonomous REST Connector is read-only, and then you can set read-only access within Hybrid Data Pipeline for OData. And I believe also some individual sources, I believe SQL Server and some others have read-only options available in the drivers as well.
Okay. All right, guys, we've been testing a trial of your ODBC connector and noticed that SQL views seem to give access denied even after granting a user's permission. Let's scroll down. Not sure if that is a bug or if we just need to find the documentation on views specific. Regular tables are working fine. Views are now. Any suggestions? I know this is a pretty in-depth, in-the-weeds question.
Yeah,
maybe this will be another one. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be really hard to give any suggestions on this call. But yeah, looking into our KB articles, those are really good sources of knowledge. If you can probably search on the KB article to see if you get any quick help there, or use our Progress community to ask that technical questions, where our engineers, support teams are always eager to help customers and prospects to move forward with their evaluation or whatever the project they are running with. So those will be the really good resources to try out.
And you can also contact your sales account representative, and they can also get your an SC, myself, or somebody else in the organization on a call so we can work with you on that question.
Yeah, that's a very good point, both of you. We have a lot more than Kylie and Abihu. We have a whole team of technical people, technical support that can help you, training, and we definitely have a large organization that can help with your needs. Let's see, we're getting to about 8 minutes left and the questions are still flowing in. Is there any sort of logging in your products for internal audit of the data usage?
Yes, so like I was saying, like auditing is one of the common concerns that we are hearing with the BI projects, right? With multiple data sources, it's very hard to get that auditing enabled. And with hybrid data pipeline, you can definitely implement that sort of audit to get more visibility into what's happening with your data.
Okay. And looks like we've come to an end to the questions, but we do have a couple of questions within the chat. So I'm going to get into that real quick. Give me a few seconds, guys. I apologize. We have okay, guys. We have a lot of API tools to access data, connectivity with other solutions like ODBC, connectivity to OpenEdge, accessing on-premise, SQL, data sources to Power Cloud in the questions. Okay, that was more of a statement than a question. Sorry, guys. Okay, what is the best way to provide data to local users?
What is the best way? Sorry, can you come again?
Yeah, what is the best way to provide data to local users? We have gone ahead and copied data locally, but copying the entire terabyte database is too much to handle daily, and running queries against the database remotely can take a long time to run.
Yeah, I'm still sort of hinged on local users. It's like they have multiple regions from where the users are connecting to, and they want to replicate data at multiple regions, or like usually all the data sources support client server model, where client sits at the end user's machine where they are trying to pull the data, and then the data resides at the server end. Right, there are multiple database functionalities like data replication clusters where they can sort of keep multiple copies of the data. So I'm still not really clear, and I'm not even sure like I'm answering that question properly.
Not an issue at all. Once again, just another opportunity for us to contact that individual and be able to get to their questions answered.
On that question, yeah.
Well, it looks like we have come to an end to all the questions. I don't see any more within the chat or the question pane. Is there any last thoughts from either one of you before we wrap up this webcast?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see so many people joining the call, asking these questions, right? It just shows like there is a lot of interest around BI analytics tools, and really happy to be here and try to address some of those questions.
Yeah, I echo what you say, Abhut. We had a lot of great questions. I think this might be some of the more questions that I've ever seen on these webcasts, and it really shows the interest that people are having in connecting to data for BI and analytics. Kylie, if you don't have any lasting thoughts, I'll end the webcast now, just letting everyone know that we appreciate your time. Kylie and Abhut, I appreciate your time as well. And we'll be sending out this webcast recording to everyone that registered and attended the webcast today. And with that, I wish everyone a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.